Welcome to Starcast from Planet Waves. Thanks for joining me. Today's edition goes out with the January 9th weekly horoscope, the one that's associated with the forthcoming Cancer full moon, and also the article, which is a non-astrology piece about the actual policies of Jimmy Carter, whose funeral service is happening right now as I am recording. That is an article in a style and covering certain topics that really more reflective of my much earlier journalism career, but I've been contemplating this stuff now for a couple of weeks and reopening these issues, particularly on Planet Waves FM, and it's all come rushing back to me. I had some help on this from Jeffrey Strahl and Michael Bryant, guys I often work with on the health freedom and virus issues, who are also very well versed in this type of foreign policy matter. And if you are interested in Carter's chart, that is covered on an edition of Planet Waves FM that I link from the bottom of the article about him and this thing called the Trilateral Commission. And it's rather strange that I'm the only person writing about this. I mean, I looked in Google. We've been checking various different blogs and Substacks, and nobody else has put these two words together with Jimmy Carter, except that Jimmy Carter was one of the founding members of the Trilateral Commission and essentially invited this organization into Washington, where it mounted a takeover of the executive branch and therefore the federal government. So I have pulled that together. That was yesterday's project, and today I'm here to talk a little bit about the astrology. And my voice is suddenly a little froggy. There seems to be some, I don't know what, pollen or dust in the air. And right before I started recording, I began sneezing. Don't you love how that happens? Okay, so the main event that we're coming up upon is the full moon in the sign Cancer. We've got the sun moving now through the late degrees of Capricorn, and the moon currently, as of this recording, is in Taurus, and then it's going to enter Gemini fairly soon. Let's figure out when that is. Hold on a second. We'll enter Gemini. So it seems to be in the fast side of the cycle right now, and then so over the weekend we'll be largely passing through Gemini. It enters Gemini. Come on. Later today, 9:06 p.m. 8:06. For some reason, my laptop is still daylight savings time. Never ends, does it? At 8:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on today, which is Thursday, and then the moon enters Cancer on the 12th. That is Sunday. a little bit past. Well, actually, late on the 11th because of this daylight savings time thing. I promise not to devote the rest of my life to ending daylight savings time, but it is just the most ridiculous thing that we do, which is make the clocks jump around, and then I'm still being haunted by it in the middle of the winter. Just anyway, that's what I get for having a lot of old Apple laptops, which are all intended to run this one program that I use called IO Sprite. Anyway, now let's actually talk about astrology and not the time zone and the program used to cast the astrology. So let's focus on this full moon a bit. It is definitely an intriguing chart. The full moon is conjunct Mars. Will be conjunct Mars. 3 degree conjunction with the moon at full phase, and so that brings a lot of passion and intensity and desire and some anger, except that Mars remains retrograde for another month and a half or so. And so it is retrograde in the sign Cancer, and this has been prompting my thoughts about things coming from the Gestalt therapy school of thought, which is about what happens when emotions, particularly strong emotions, are directed inward when they want to be directed outward and expressed, and instead they are focused inwardly as a kind of resentment and guilt, basically, is what happens when something like Martian energy is turned in on itself. And that business of turning in on itself is especially sensitive in the sign Cancer because in one way Cancer is so internal and so rooted in one's personal feelings and one's emotions. Cancer people born under the sign Cancer can be very outwardly expressive people, but most of the time the quality of this energy field is an interior type of experience. So you think of a crab in its shell or a clam inside of its shell, and as T.S. Eliot said, I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas. He must have had a terrible life. Okay, so the point here is beware of when you are turning your anger and resentment inward on yourself. Now, that does not mean to, go around having road rage. I mean, that's not the answer here. The answer is not to, hassle everyone around you or to project your anger onto people, but rather to make sure that you are conscious of who you're feeling whatever certain feelings toward. And because Mars is retrograde, and due to other factors I'm about to get into as we jump across the zodiac into Capricorn where the sun is, we're really talking about things that are rooted in family situations and emotions that have been dragged along since childhood, which tend to get toxic and stagnant and cause all kinds of scenarios like paralysis and depression. Underneath depression is always a level of anger. It would be nice if we could talk about that and not just have this constant litany of different pills that one can take for depression. I reckon a large number of people are still on these, and my bones go cold if I happen to be, on the rare occasion, which I have been the past couple of days, watching television, and there are all of these ads for antidepressants, which are, it's kind of wall to wall. It may depend on what channel you're on, but they're just pushing this stuff hard. And at the end, there's always the suicidal ideation warning. So how is it that they're taking people who already are psychologically fragile and who are already, experiencing some issues managing their feelings, and then administering a drug where one of the known effects, is self-harm ideation and suicidal ideation? I do not understand this. If there's anybody with a shred of intelligence left to look back in 100 years, we're going to wonder why we were just so completely out of our minds. Now, this full moon has another property. Not only is it conjunct Mars, it is going to be square Eris. Eris is, of course, in Aries, and the issue there is a first of all general condition available of turmoil. Eris is often represents inner turmoil, but the kind of inner turmoil that Eris represents is dissociation from oneself and thinking about the body in weird ways. So I'll give you an example of Eris. The thought form that someone might look at you in a way that potentially indicates that they are attracted to you, which could completely be a projection. So whether either it's a projection or it's a real thing. But imagine that that's the thought form. Someone looks at you and they seem to be attracted to you. Processing that, registering that as an indicator of attack, assault, or rape is a perfect and perfectly horrid example of the kind of dissociation that is possible under the influence of Eris, which in our time is about the influence of the digital and artificial intelligence environment, which is basically taking us out of body and also associated with all kinds of weird concepts about what the body is and what the body is for and what other people think about our bodies and all of this. And another example going on is this absolutely outrageous daily introduction of a new virus. I remain tapped into the group of people who are doing the best work on the issue of the virus, and it seems to say that it's one new one a day is an exaggeration, but it is a slight exaggeration. They're coming up with new ones all the time. And I was listening to like Black Information Network, whatever, this kind of Sirius XM channel. It seemed to be the most interesting thing on Sirius XM. Well, every 10 minutes there is another advertisement for some virus and some vaccine over and over. I had to turn it off. And so the notion that could some way affect a person, that could take hold and instigate enough fear to then take on a body burden of unknown poisons, that the safety record of these products is abysmal. And forget the fact that they don't do anything positive, but that one could be led to so much fear that the body is reduced to a symbol of sickness and death. That is Eris and Eris, and there's a flavor of Chiron in Eris as well. Let's see when this Sun Chiron conjunction happens as part of this. So right now, the Sun Chiron conjunction is happening. It happened overnight. So early in the day on Thursday. Was the Sun Chiron conjunction. It's still within a degree, chances are, at the time that you are listening. And this is, while we're here, this can be evocative of various forms of self-inflicted ideation, and also a kind of a cosmic beacon to be sensitive to the plight of men. This is yet another problem that our society has right now. The advertising that men are evil and that women are victims is just going wall to wall. Well, I ask you, if it was so true, why would we need 24/7 wall-to-wall advertising to remind us? And the human race has been around in some form similar to what we have, walking around picking berries and eating psychedelic mushrooms off of the floor of the desert or the forest. You would think by now, if there's such a thing as a virus, we would have adapted to it. Why all of a sudden is it a virus a day? Well, I'll tell you why it's a virus a day. It's a virus a day because there's people making a lot of money. Not, excuse me, I am so sorry about my voice. Not only about making money, not only on the obsessive use and prescription of these vaccines, including in your critters. They are very, very bad for cats and dogs and horses and the rest of them, but also the massive profits on the diseases caused by these things. So this is significant because now that we've talked about Sun Moon square Eris right now, coming up on Monday, and Sun square Chiron happening right now as I speak, we are very rapidly approaching the full focus Chiron conjunct Eris. I believe, let's take a look at Sprite and see exactly what day that happens on. There is so much happening that I have not been able to commit these dates to memory, and it's always a little bit dodgy to do that. It's always good to keep referring back to a source. Chiron conjunct Eris. Okay, so this is exact on May 27th, the day of the Gemini new moon, but it's not that far off. That's only figure a piece of January, February, March, April. We're really talking a little over approximately a little under four months, but that's not how these things work. It's not like it doesn't just show up like a train, and a lot is going to happen between now and then. So we're going to have this conjunction of Chiron and Eris, which is really stirring the pot now, and it will be stirring the pot then, and when we get to then, we will be able to look back and see the effects that are happening now. So it just makes sense to recognize that this is happening now, and it is a tremendous provocation of this issue around the meaning, the purpose, and the experience of the body. And we have just got to start thinking about the body as a communication medium and not as a symbol of disease and death. This is written about quite a bit in A Course in Miracles, about how the body just becomes the symbol of attack and the symbol of death. And we absolutely need to think of the body in a different way to have any peace here on the physical plane in our bodies on Earth. Okay, so before I get into the Hunger Games group, which is very active right now because Mercury is going to be there, one last thing. At the time of the full moon, a little bit before, maybe the 12th, the 11th, effectively right now, because Mars is retrograde in late Cancer. Mars is trine Neptune and the North Node. North Node now has arrived in Pisces, so the eclipses are going to follow the nodes into Pisces and Virgo. I'll talk about that a little bit more when I have that data up in front of me. But Mars trine Neptune, Mars retrograde trine Neptune with the lunar node involved. And then the full moon comes and pumps up that Mars and is trine Neptune and trine the node with the chaos factor added. This is about practicing honesty. This is about practicing being real. Once you start looking at it, I think that it is truly impressive the extent to which so many people are capable of constant, ongoing, nonstop, casual lying. We call it white lying, and sometimes people are living big lies, double lives. But there's this those big lies and double lives are greased by the 1,000 little lies. And I hope you're not such a person, because it can take a lot of work to pull yourself back together and pull yourself into integrity. But this is a major call to integrity, to sincerity. And I realize that these things are integrity, sincerity, being real with people in a direct and gentle way, not often very well rewarded. There's quite a bit of punishment meted out for people who are simply genuine, and then we do a lot of basically bullshit, phony authenticity, which is really just about hectic, self-righteous. Scratch it all. We just need to be sincere, and that is a matter of practice, and it's also a matter of courage, because the main thing that prevents people from being sincere is, A, they might be embarrassed by what they're saying, and then also they fear a response of some kind from someone else. Okay, so that is cautionary, and this dovetails into another theme, because anytime you've got a lot of Neptune in the chart, and I would say that retrograde Mars trine Neptune, it opens up the valve. It opens up this very rapid flow of Neptune, which can be about delusion and denial, and also substance-induced delusion and denial with the full moon right there. That is flashing a warning about very carefully managing and observing your state of mind, and to beware of the effects of even small amounts of psychoactive substances. And somehow I've got to figure out how to have the conversation about psychotropics, these substances that I hear up to half the population is either on or has been on. And where I live in New York, a lot of people are walking around with vapes. I surmise that a great many people are high on this concentrated cannabis a lot of the time. What is this about? We'll be covering that soon on an upcoming Planet Waves FM. Okay, so now that we've mentioned this, let's talk about what's going on over in the Family Hunger Games corner of the universe, that being basically the first 10 degrees of Capricorn. And I've been on this beat almost every week since I wrote about it. I think it was back in June. And this is the cluster of, first of all, Pholus, the second centaur, in the same group as Chiron. If you're studying the minor planets, Chiron and Pholus are a great place to start. They're ultra slow movers. They are very influential, and they represent relatable situations. So Pholus represents multi-generational situations. It represents generational situations where there is some form of legacy. It is about the legacy of alcohol use, where, for example, you could be affected by a problem that your grandmother or grandfather may have had. You think, oh, how is that possible? I'll tell you, it's definitely possible to be dragging around the baggage of your grandmother or your grandfather. So that is Pholus, and then also Pholus is the caution about the small cause with the big effect, right? Pholus is conjunct Quaoar, Quaoar. We still don't have a Tungva speaker to tell me the correct pronunciation. That is an even slower mover. It is also associated with matters going back a long way in the family. And then mixed in with this is a most disturbing point called Ixion. Again, an ultra slow mover out by Pluto. And Ixion is about amorality, not having a moral framework at all, as if it doesn't matter, and the squandering of second chances, where you give someone another chance and then they just do the same thing, or someone gives you another chance and you do the same thing. So this group of planets is essentially a not exactly permanent fixture, but it's on a scale of many years. And so it's just sitting there waiting for things to come through and bring it close into consciousness, to make it real. And the thing coming through right now is Mercury in Capricorn, which at the time of the full moon will be conjunct Pholus, Quaoar, Ixion, and Cupido, another family point there. And so this is suggesting that it may be possible to tap into the depth of which you are affected by the thought forms of people in your ancestral line. You may want to get out their pictures if you have any. You may want to tap into the ones who you knew loved you, who set a good example, whose vibe was friendly, who cared about you, and who said positive things, and who always remembered your birthday. There's often someone like that in the family line. And then, frankly, there tend to be a lot of wackos, and it's good to say, well, that person, maybe they meant well, but they were pretty wacko. And what is it? What was it with those people? The weird branch of the family in Staten Island or in Cleveland, wherever they may have been. What was going on with them, and how did this influence me? So there's a lot of contact with ancestral thought forms. And the theory that I've developed, talking about this week after week, now, going back about, 4 weeks times about 8 months, is that the use of alcohol is often a suppressant to the disturbing thought forms of these people. And it's also a way to continue to not deal with the things that they didn't want to deal with. Then, whenever then was, as now, there's very little people seeking help and therapy and finding someone they can actually trust who does not have any interest in their life, which is the point of therapy. That's why it's different from talking to a friend, because friends have an interest in you, but your therapist is not supposed to have any vested personal interest in you. They may have a general humanitarian interest, and you're clearly part of their therapy practice from which they are learning to be better, but so they're learning that from all the other clients also. The point of therapy is trust, but without an interest or an emotional attachment. It's very important to learn this. By the way, while we're here and while Mercury is mixed up in this, there's a book called A General Theory of Love. And I consider this book to be absolutely first rate, except for, and again, this book came out 25 years ago, its advocacy in the end of using medication to heal anything. Besides that, it is a very good unfolding of what therapy is when therapy works. And this is also my experience of therapy training, that when therapy works, it is about building trust, and it does not matter the form of the therapy. It does not matter the branch or the style or the approach, assuming it's not Synanon, where we're getting whipped and beaten, tortured, which I think they're out of business, or I certainly hope they're out of business. It's about the cultivation of trust. And so if you are a person who's feeling pretty solid and you're fairly sure you've dealt with a bunch of your problems, one of the things that you can do to help the world is to be a trustworthy place where people can go and be treated kindly and be treated honestly. Because if we, who are capable of that, spread that vibe and create a kind of a pattern of cultivating trust in society, we're going to get a result in our own world, seemingly limited personal sphere, and then in the wider world. All right, one last thing. Venus is about to make a conjunction to Saturn and Nessus. This is going to be happening after the full moon. That can be, particularly with its square Jupiter, exaggeration. So don't take your negative feelings so seriously. Note what they are. There is the potential for a real emotional pinch with Venus conjunct Saturn, and first square Jupiter, then conjunct Saturn, then conjunct Nessus. This is saying be gentle with yourself, be gentle with others, and if you have something to apologize for, if you feel like you have mistreated someone, if you figure out that you've mistreated someone and you've been kind of denying that, or you could do better, or you're concerned about the consequences of something that you've said or done, now be a very good time to call them up and say what you have to say. Notably, without the expectation that they're going to have a positive response or that they're going to care. People need to be given time when there is a healing process. And everybody heals at their own pace, and people have different types of willingness and degrees of willingness. So, all right, that I think is what I have to say. If you're curious about the topic I've written about in today's article, I would refer you to the edition of Planet Waves FM, The Man Who Sold the World. That is linked from the original planetwaves.fm site, and also Planet Waves FM Substack, which can be gone to directly at planetwaves.org. Thank you to all of you who are paying subscribers, who have the ethics to recognize that if you come back every week and you find that I help you, a small contribution is very beneficial to the work that I'm doing. It helps me pay the many people and bills that I have to pay to be able to come here in a clear state of mind every week or more, and to do the writing and artwork that I do to make my presentations to you beautiful and accessible. So, thank you. By the way, The Awakening is still available, still hot and fresh, and this can be found on any of the Planet Waves websites, especially the Astrology Boutique. That's astrology.boutique. If you are seeking help, you are very likely to find it at the Astrology Boutique. Affordable, a lot cheaper than therapy. And I do my best to offer a place of sanctuary and refuge and sincerity, which is the main thing that we need right now. Okay, signing off from Jacksonville, Florida, on my way home to New York. Lots of love, and bye for now.